Greetings. This is General of the Armies, Vincent Diaz Jr. This is yet another point I was trying to get through on the last communique. With the talk of Belarus joining in, I just wanted to say some stuff like they need to be ready to go to war with their own people if they do, because going to war with police anywhere is going to war with police everywhere, and we definitely have all these reports of it being war with the police in this thing they're talking about getting into. Well, they also need to be ready to having this state of affairs where it's sort of a constant standing threat of needing to get rid of the West, or at least their way of life of being this standing threat that will surely start to turn their aggression towards them like towards Russia, as they've made great amount of threats to anyone supporting Russia at this point. I wanted to start talking into the points on the nuclear warfare we're at the brink of, and say I am in complete and full support. And the way I've wanted things going, I wish we've already gone to nuclear warfare in this thing. I wanted to maybe make a crack about the USA. I think I'm going to be able to hold my Nazi agenda work with the USA going around and constantly threatening the use of nuclear weapons, like they can bring out policy like it's always on the table, while their people and the Western world they influence so much are always in this battle like use of nuclear, much of anything, is just totally disallowed, which is like it's totally in this funny way, like they're just never going to stand what this use of their nuclear option, if it ever happens, would do to the world, where they don't want nuclear energy used in nearly any way. I have had to go through some exercises. I'm one of the inventors of the nuclear weapons. I've been at most of the nuclear bomb tests. I've been fully conscious in a way I remember that did have to start from me slipping off to the zone in a fake sleep state. At a somewhat recent nuclear bombing, where I was at the minimum distance of where they want these maximum distances to have a clear zone for calling fire in the hole with one of these things, where I got hit with a wall of sand on one. Well, I've had to endure a whole horrible nightmare of a season of having to have enemies now that have the ability to use nuclear strikes on a microscopic level, where it's just jerks who come out and throw it in my face like they like to throw acid in people's face, and a bit more like they have some technology like the zone I was in that was a water purification plant would get lit up real bad, like I'd come down and I'd get under a nuclear shockwave. So between my thermal suit and my skin, I'd be in just a horrendous overheating situation that stung. It was radiant and horrible. But I've also had to be, and this was around that other bombing, I'm actually talking about being at a bombing site. I've had to be in a situation where I was in a meditation attack mode, having to try to use all the nuclear weapons on the planet, like I had won all of the ordnance in some strange way as an individual army of one, to strike my enemy at the time was just basically most life in existence, especially the government of San Bernardino and the rest of that zone and the people and all of it. Watch my Nazi agenda. So I have a lot of meditation in such a way. I got so good at this constant meditation of they started up the combat with me again, and in meditation I went to the place in my mind where I was nuclear striking them right where I was. And I went so far with this, I started to feel my meditation strikes and even show signs of it, as like a sunburn and stuff. The reality of the situation is much of anything that's ever been seen or done or really known in the way these people think about warfare and nuclear warfare, mostly fiction, is in no way going to be what it takes to control a population like the population I was trying to get under control only in my own meditations. It was just based on what they had done to me and their behavior in response when they seemed to really tune into my mind, to know in my mind I was smiting them out as a species, baby, regularly, at their monstrous behavior of constant torture of me definitely making me a bit of a center of focus to, have that attention and knowledge of what I was thinking. So I have a system of striking with a massive amount of nuclear ordnance all at the same time, with a system of running them in chains like pillars. Like sometimes it seems you have to strike with them where they go off in this reverberation pattern, like they blow up in a way so that it's something like the one up top, like they're in a stack of 10 coming in, can blow the one on the bottom, which might be the biggest with the most capability to maybe just blow down a building totally in one strike, gets smashed in as hard as it possibly can above its normal criteria because it's just had 9 nuclear strikes above it, smashing it down for its final ordnance delivery of its strike, with it striking the building at explosion. So then I started trying to make pillars of columns of these, or think about raining these things down more than one at a time. Like I was actually seeing and feeling these things, having the full meditation with my connection to our intelligence machines to know that our ordnance is capable of this. With that sort of pulling down, like I might have sort of smashed out and just totally destroyed and annihilated the targets that deserved that, and moved to this system of running them down in these pillars and columns of layers, sort of like a matrix of them, sort of like in sheets layered on top of each other, but with just pillars and columns instead of whole sheets, such that you could sort of have a square of pillars with a hole in the middle of it raining down on a target, and have a number of sheets go off at the same time, trying to get this reverberation done not only in top to bottom but side to side, such that I think I was working up to like 4 and 8 bombs all at the same time really easily, surrounding a building and then striking that building all at the same time in like a rain pattern. Because this was still so horrendous, having to control the population that was going to snap with the threat, like if this goes off, everything's going to go down, it's going to turn to apocalypse, and all these monsters are going to come out and just start this just terror of life where they just go off and are violent and war at all times and don't care about anything except the joy of torture and getting what they don't like to torture, like me. And such that, I wasn't just raining down like one sheet's worth. I was trying to cover the whole visual zone I had, striking as many targets as seemed reasonable. And lastly, I just wanted to add this point about what it takes to actually control them when you're striking at them instead of this sort of total annihilation plan I'm talking about. And I worked my way up when I was actually having to feel what it might be like to nuclear strike like this, because we have training equipment to nuclear strike me when I think like this. Where I was wondering if we could just rain some hellfire and sunburn people really bad to get it in their minds that they are controlled or are controllable like this, with that doing nothing, with me wondering how bad it would be because it wasn't hurting me so much, with it turning into like a 10-second raining of hellfire where I was going to have to shell up in my gear, like pull my skin into cover of what I was wearing. And when I was hitting that point, it was starting to seem like it might start to get the civilians or the whatevers under control around me, with it mostly seeming you really, really have to maim these people. Like you want to char them and leave them alive if you're just going to try to strike some sense into them, such that they need to be charred forever to teach them the lesson to stop their bad behavior with this type of force control. And just to put together what the meditation exercise was, I think it was something like 2 weeks to a month of this constant bombing of them, with them sort of having an awareness, with it just being a meditation exercise, with things not calming down until they started to see nature, with us also showing our capabilities of creating this ordinance, that they might just have to live under this condition to live to do this forever.